Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Night Run Studio, and if you've been following along with us so far, then you probably have some UI for your shop. You're able to populate it with items on startup, however you can't actually do anything yet. So in this video, we're finally going to make it so that we can buy and sell from our shop. Let's get started. Now before we do anything else, I just want to correct a little error that crept in at some point along the way here, and that is just that I've actually added two shop managers to my shop. I have one here on the shop canvas and another on the shop panel. Now my panel is actually the one that has all the correct information inputted. So I'm just gonna right click on the shop manager in my panel. I'm gonna copy it. I'll then delete it by clicking remove component. I'm gonna go to my shop canvas then, where I'm just going to remove the errant shop manager. I'll then right click and paste in the stuff that I copied from my panel. Now we've just got one shop manager and it's on the parent of the shop, similar to how our inventory manager is on the parent of the inventory canvas. All right, we're ready to get started. So we're gonna begin with buying here, and we're gonna buy by clicking on the shop slots and then having them notify the shop manager that we want to collect that item. Let's head into the shop slot to start this off. So we need our shop slots to be able to contact the shop manager whenever we click them so we can purchase items. So let's make a serialized reference to the shop manager. Now we can come down below and make a public void on buy button clicked. And essentially whenever we click this button, we want the shop manager to know that we're trying to buy an item, and we'll tell it which item as well as what the price is. It won't like that at first, so we'll head over to the shop manager. Now, in order to check if we have enough money to buy the item, we need to be able to talk to the inventory manager. So we'll make another serialized reference for that. We can then head down below and create the try by item method that we tried to call from our slot. Don't forget we're passing in the item scriptable object as well as the price. Now, right at the top of the method, we're going to do two checks. The first is a defensive check to just make sure an item scriptable object was actually passed in and we didn't get some sort of error. Secondly, we'll ask the inventory manager if we have enough gold to pay the price for this item. If both of these check out, we're ready to proceed with the purchase, in which case we want to see if the inventory manager actually has space for the item. I'm going to create a special method for this, and here we're going to make a private bool rather than void because we want to return either a true or false value depending on whether or not we have space for the item. What we want to do now is just loop through every slot in our inventory manager's item slots. Now for each item that we come across, we're going to check first of all to see if that slot already contains the same item. So if it's a mushroom, we're going to see if the slot in the inventory also has mushrooms. Once we find one, we'll check if that slot's quantity is less than the max stack size of the item, meaning is there still room for more? If so, we'll return true, meaning we'll say yes, we can put the item here. Now we could put brackets here on our return true, which is what I've been doing throughout the series. However, if we are just returning a single line on an if statement, it actually doesn't have to have brackets, and I'm just going to remove them as it just keeps our code a little more compact and easier to read. Now, if we don't find any slots that already have the same item and still have room for more, we then want to just check for empty slots. So we'll make an else if statement here, and now we're just checking to see if the item has a null scriptable object, meaning it's empty, and if so, we will also return true. Now, if we get through all the items in our inventory and we don't have any with the same item that still have room, and we don't have any empty slots, that means there's no room left, in which case we will want to return false. Now, let's say for a second all those checks return true. This item is in fact an item. We've got enough money for it and we have room. In that case, we want to tell our inventory manager that its gold should go down by the price of that item. We're then going to update the gold text so that it's equal to whatever our current gold total is. Don't forget we have to convert this to a string, as gold is an integer, not a string. Finally, we'll just tell our inventory manager to add this item to our inventory. Here we'll just pass along the item SO as well as its quantity, which will be 1 for each time we click it. Now we do have a little bit of setup to do, so let's click on our shop slot, open up the prefab, and here we just want to go down to our button component and add an onClick function. We just want to make it so that anytime we click it, it talks to the shop slot, so we'll drag it in there. And specifically, we want to call the shop slot's function for on by button clicked. One other thing we want to do while we're in the prefab, let's just go to our name banner, and somehow I forgot to unclick the raycast target button. This just means that if I try to click on this shop slot, but click on the name, it'll block the raycast, and we don't want that. So we'll take that off just as we already did for the item icon and the cost box. All right, we can leave our prefab now. And the next thing we just want to do is make sure that each of our slots knows where the shop manager is. So we can shift click all the slots here, and we're just going to drag the shop canvas into that box so that they can talk to it. Finally, we'll head to our shop canvas, look at the shop manager, and you can see that it needs a reference to the inventory manager. So let's drag the inventory canvas right in there. Now they can talk to each other. While we're here, we also just want to go to our canvas group. We've already set our alpha to 1, so the shop opens immediately when we test our game. Let's also make it interactable and set it to block raycasts. This is just going to make it so that our buttons can actually be clicked. Later on, we'll toggle all of this stuff from within our code, but for now, we're just going to open it by default. Now, in order to actually test this, we're going to need some gold. So let's also go to our inventory canvas, and I'm just going to give myself 10 gold so I have some buying power. And now when we get in the game, we can click to purchase items, our gold updates, and when we run out of gold, we can no longer purchase. That said, we can still left click to use items or right click to drop them, and we don't necessarily want that functionality to continue when the shop's open. So let's disable that while also adding the ability to sell. Now, selling items is a little more complicated than purchasing, but let's think about how we want this to work. So first, whenever our shop is open, we want to make it so that we can click on the inventory items and have them actually go back into the shop and our gold go up. So let's head to the shop manager before we do anything else. Now, right at the top here, we're just going to make a public static event. This is going to be an action event, which isn't going to be liked at the moment. So let's just add using system so that our code knows what we're talking about. Now, essentially, we just want our shop manager to send out a message to any listeners anytime it opens or closes, so that they know which shop has currently been opened or which shop has been closed, so that they know how to behave. And we can call this onShopStateChanged. Later, we'll call this method whenever we open or close the inventory, but for now we're just opening it on start, so we'll put it there. Now we could just say onShopStateChanged and pass along the parameters of this shop manager and true because it's opening. However, we want to add a quick check here as well. So we're just going to put a question mark .invoke before we pass along our parameters. While we're here, let's set up that infrastructure for actually selling the item. So we'll make a public void method called sellitem that will just take in the item scriptable object we're trying to sell. Here we'll just check if the item scriptable object is null, and if it is, we'll return because something went wrong and an item was not passed in. Now, assuming we're actually trying to sell a real item, we want to start a for each loop here, which is just going to loop through every slot in our shop. Here we're just making sure that the shop actually has the item we're trying to sell. Now, if the shop does have the same scriptable object, we'll move ahead with the sale, telling our inventory manager that its gold should go up by whatever the price is on this slot. Now, it won't like that for the moment, but if we head over to shop slot, we can just make price into a public reference. That way our shop manager can access it. Additionally, let's say that you don't want to give back the full price of the item. You could add some custom logic here. For example, maybe you want him to purchase back the item, but always at -1 from the price. Or maybe he's only going to give you half the price. It's up to you how you want to handle this, but this would be the place. Once we've updated our price, we just want to make sure that our gold text also reflects that new price. Finally, we'll just return, meaning we don't want to keep checking any more slots because we already found the item we're looking for and have sold it back to the shop. All right, now we can head to our inventory slot, which is where we will initiate the sale. Whenever we click on a slot and the shop is open, we want to tell the currently active shop that we have an intention to sell. So we'll make a reference to the shop manager and we'll just call this one active shop. We'll make this a static variable. That way all of the inventory slots can share the same reference. And now we just need to know which shop manager is active. For this, we're going to use this shop manager's event that we created, and we're going to subscribe to it using the onEnable method, which just runs as soon as the slot is activated. To subscribe to that event, we just type shop manager and then the name of the event, and here we'll put plus equals, and I'm just going to type in handle shop state changed, which will be the method in this script that will get called whenever the shop state changes. We'll then unsubscribe from it in onDisable so that we don't keep listening to it when we no longer need to or if this slot has been destroyed. Now we can make the method we're talking to here, the handle shop state changed, and it just needs to take in a couple of parameters. Remember, we're passing along the shop manager script so we know which one's active, as well as a bool for whether or not it's being opened or closed. We'll call this bool isOpen. Now we'll just set a value for our active shop, and here we'll use a ternary operator, which lets us ask the question, is the shop open? And if it is, we'll set whatever shop manager just got passed in as the active shop. However, if the bool is false and it's not open, we will just pass a null value, meaning there is no active shop. Now, I just spelled this wrong, so we'll just take the double shop off of those, and now everything's all set up. Now we can head to our on pointer click and just initiate the logic so that when we click on the item, it actually talks to our shop. And if we left click on this inventory slot, we're gonna check. If the active shop is not null, meaning there's an open shop, then we wanna tell that shop specifically to sell the item we've just clicked on. Here we can just put item SO. We'll then take its quantity down by 1. And we also just wanna update its UI so that it now has the correct number on that slot. Now we also want to disable the using of the item, so we're going to make this have an else statement. That way if the shop is not null, meaning it's open, we run the top part of this logic, and if the shop is not open, then we can run the part that actually makes us use the item on clicking. Now there's just one last thing to do, and that is we want to fix our update UI. Currently, if we went to our game and sold items, it would all work, except that once we run out of items in our inventory slot, it wouldn't actually clear itself out. That's because in Update UI, we only clear out the item's image and quantity text if the item scriptable object is null, meaning there is no scriptable object. But currently, when we sell all the items, we don't change that. So at the top here, let's just make sure that if the quantity of the item gets to be less than or equal to 0, we clear out the item scriptable object. Now our logic below will run properly so that the slot actually gets cleared once it's empty. And with that, we now have fully functional buying and selling. We can purchase items till we run out of money. We can sell them back to the shop and our gold will go back up. And they also disappear from our inventory. Now we've got some work to do. In the next video, we'll make it so that we can actually toggle this shop on and off by talking to different shopkeepers. And then in the final video after that, we'll add the ability to have this item description panel actually give us some item descriptions. If there's anything else you'd like to see in this series, be sure to let me know. That said, we're all done for this video, so until next time, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.